Hello and welcome to Criminal Justice Inspection Unpacked, the podcast of Criminal Justice Inspection, where we explore issues and developments in the criminal justice system in Northern Ireland. I'm Melanie McVeigh and it's great to be back with you again. Today's episode of our podcast is coming to you from a unique location. We have relocated today and we are in Magilligan Prison to talk about what's been happening here and what the findings of the latest inspection on this prison have revealed. We have 5 guests joining us and I'm going to ask everyone to introduce themselves in turn. Gary, can I start with you?
Yeah, sure, Melanie. My name's Gary Milling and I'm the Governor in charge of Magilligan Prison.
I'm Stephen Hillis. I'm Deputy Region Head of Prison Programmes, looking after quality and performance of education and training within Magilligan.
And my name is Declan. I'm a resident and I'm also a mentor for a number of organisations.
I'm Maureen Aaron and I'm an inspector with Criminal Justice Inspection.
I'm Elaine Cole. I'm a lead nurse and I'm working for the South Eastern Trust in partnership with the Northern Ireland Prison Service.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for this special edition. And I am going to perhaps get Gary to give us a little bit of a flavour about Magilligan. How many men do you actually have here currently in your care?
So today we've just slightly over 500 people living here, more than we would like. Our infrastructure isn't actually designed to hold that many, but the current population levels inside the Northern Ireland Prison Service dictate that unfortunately we have to double some of the men who are living in Halbert House, which isn't ideal. We don't want to do it. But it just means that we can take some of the pressure off Magabry. So I suppose you could say that does put a little bit of pressure on the likes of our partners, as Lane mentioned, in terms of healthcare, and also what Stephen can provide by way of education facilities for people. But together here we work very closely in partnership to make sure that whatever we have, whatever bit of space we have, whatever availability of resource we have is maximised out so that the guys living here get the best possible opportunities they can when they're here.
And could you tell us what type of a prison is Magilligan? How would it, for example, differ from Magabry, which others might be familiar with?
So Magabry is a Cat A prison. So it holds, for example, the separated prisoners inside Magabry and also individuals who would be slightly higher risk. So Magilligan holds both Cat B and Cat C people, and we offer a very much more open regime. So we have a completely free flow system. Our staffing levels wouldn't be the same as they would be at Magabry. We put a lot of faith in trust in the people that live here. And what we're looking to do is establish really positive relationships that help people progress through and move through the system to hopefully get out the other side and then not come back in. And it's not just my staff that do that. There's a wide range of people, such as Declan, who's very active, who live here as well, who play a very, very important role in that journey as well.
I'm going to turn to you, Maureen. Perhaps you can give us a flavour of the recent inspection of Magilligan. You were acting as the CJI lead for this piece of work.
Okay, so the inspection itself is conducted with a number of partner inspectorates, so Criminal Justice Inspection, alongside His Majesty Inspectorate of Prisons, the Regulation and Quality Improvement Authority, who look at the healthcare delivery, and then also the Education and Training Inspectorate, who will look at education, learning and skills. And the recent inspection, the fieldwork for the inspection was done in September 2025. And that would have involved in week 1 a survey of the prisoner population here, and some initial kind of walks and observations made around the prison, and then the full inspection team were on the ground for week 2, and that's when there are a number of different areas inspected. And overall then, in terms of the outcomes from the inspection against the 4 healthy prisons test, which is what we examine against, so under safety, respect, purposeful activity and preparation for release, the prison was assessed as producing good outcomes in each of those areas, which is a very positive finding and an improvement on the previous inspection, which had been conducted. The previous full inspection had been done back in 2021 when Gary had just arrived here as the governor. I think it was a relatively...
I will be eternally grateful to Jackie and Maureen.
And it was a new management team, to be fair, largely in place
yeah,
at that time as well,
yes,
Gary. And you were emerging out of COVID.
Yes.
And I suppose it was a surprise for the inspection team at that time, to see that some of the outcomes were not as good as they had been in previously. And then we had done, in the intervening period in 2023, we had conducted an independent review of progress. And that was the first time that had been done, because usually as a place of detention, we are required to inspect on a frequent basis as part of the National Preventative Mechanism. And so in Northern Ireland, when you've only got 3 prisons, it had become quite routine in terms of if Magilligan's inspected in 2021, another site would be inspected in 2022 and a third site in 2023. And what we were concerned about is sometimes you can drift between inspections in terms of progressing recommendations. So the independent review of progress gave an opportunity to come back in and look at, well, what progress has the prison made against the recommendations that we had previously made in 2021. And I think it's fair to say that the findings for Magilligan on that occasion were quite mixed. So there was about half of the recommendations we felt there had been progress made in, but there were half where we didn't think there had been sufficient progress or no meaningful progress, which were the judgments that we used at that time. And I think I'm speaking for you, Gary, and you might want to come in yourself and Declan maybe, but in terms of, I think that was a disappointment to you in terms of your assessment of where you were, and our assessment of where you were didn't align. And certainly from the findings of this inspection, you can certainly see a big improvement in a lot of the areas.
I think when you move beyond the initial sort of pain, when it comes in, because it's very hard not to personalise these things to some degree. It's a report about Magilligan, but I'm in charge of Magilligan. Yeah. And the same way Elaine will feel the same about healthcare services and Stephen about North West Regional College. So once you've moved beyond that and you stop and you take stock and you think, actually, do you know what?
Did you find then it was maybe a useful sort of sense check?
Look, honestly, I mean, it really was. I mean, in the initial bit, you do well, it's all very well for Maureen to come down and say X, Y, and Z, because Maureen's looking at a range of recommendations, and I'm trying to advance the jail holistically. But when you stop and you actually be honest with yourself, you realise, actually, a range of people have been in here, they've looked at this, and these recommendations are key to the previous inspection, and it's not just the recommendation, it does flow out across the rest of the prison. So, if you're being honest with yourself, you've got to say, we just haven't done as well as we thought we were doing. So in that respect, the IRP was a really good, that moment of, right, we need to re-engage, we need to look at this, we need to sort of re-inject some enthusiasm and some effort into this and refocus and carry on and go forward again.
I think I would also maybe just add there, in terms of the independent review of progress, it's looking at what progress is made, whereas the full inspections are trying to assess what are the outcomes for the men that live here. And I suppose you can do a lot of work sometimes, but that work may not be resulting in improved outcomes. And I think, just to take, for example, in the IRP, we had assessed that the consultation infrastructure with prisons, between prisons, leaders, staff, and the prisoner population was not good. It wasn't sufficiently good. Whereas we have seen that transformed in the period since. And the type of work that you're doing, Declan, in terms of the mentoring support and the leadership that Gary displayed, the kind of team working ethos across this prison, that was really evident in this latest inspection.
And I think it's fair to say this is the first time that there has been the Healthy Prisons tests have achieved a good status across the 4 areas. Isn't that correct? For Magilligan. Yeah.
And Gary you were the governor in Highbank before, and it also performed well. Yeah.
That's something obviously you'll be welcoming as a team and reflecting on the partnerships that are here. Mm-hmm. maybe you could. I'll bring in Elaine and Stephen in at this point, and then I'm going to put the spotlight on you, Declan.
At least you got a warning. I just got bounced.
Just from your perspective, what do you feel has been at the heart of delivering the change, and how important has the partnerships that are here been to this, maybe?
Well, I think from an education, learning and skills perspective, it's for us, we feel part of a culture of learning, which is most important. That's easy for a college to talk about because it's what we do. But when you do it in an environment where we don't necessarily have the control, it's a very, very difficult environment. I think it's the leadership and our partners and the officers on the ground and the students, probably most importantly, feeling that they can actually go, learn, feel they're at a college. And I think that cultural shift has been absolutely massive. And it's actually made our life a little bit easier because we don't have to justify why somebody needs to go. It's understood why they come to learning and skills. And we are now prioritised within the culture of Magilligan. And I think individuals like Declan are absolutely vital as well, on the ground, talking to people in the landings, encouraging and giving people an understanding of that it's a good thing. Go down. It's like a college.
It's given that extra flavour of what it's like in reality, maybe.
Absolutely.
Tackling some preconceived ideas, Declan.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Elaine, from your side on the healthcare?
Definitely a fantastic partnership that we have working here. I mean, I think it goes along with too that I've worked for both organisations. So, you know, I know the priorities for the Northern Ireland Prison Service, because when I first came in the job, we were employed by the Northern Ireland Prison Service as healthcare staff, and then moving over, chipping across to the South Eastern Trust. So I can understand both organisations' priorities, and it works really well because I can speak on behalf of NIPS when I go to trust meetings, but I know our priorities when I go to NIPS meetings, and the whole leadership team in Magilligan and the whole, you know, as we've said, it's just such a partnership. You know, if I have issues, I can come to Gary any day of the week, or Alan, or any of the governors, and they listen and we sort through it. We look at what's the best, you know, how we can resolve them, and they resolve very, very quickly. It is down to that partnership. From a point of view, I think too, the environment, we know this environment is very old, the buildings are old, and you know, the H blocks, it's not ideal. But I've seen patients progressing, because I've worked in Magabry, and I've seen difficult patients progressing from Magabry to Magilligan, and within 6 months they're totally different people. And it's the environment. I think it's all down to the environment.
The environment isn't just down to the fabric of buildings, it's very much the culture and
it is that culture. Definitely.
The people making the difference as much as anything else.
Absolutely. And the mentors and the work that they do, the Ask Him mentors and the listeners and all of that working in partnership with us and NIPS, it's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. Well, Declan, I did say I was going to come to you, and I'd just like to hear from your perspective. How would you describe what it's like here at Magilligan?
Well, probably to give you an overview first is I'll talk about myself first, and then I'll talk about the mentor programs. So with learning and skills, I've just qualified to be a fully qualified barber. So I have.
Congratulations.
And the amount of education that is on is absolutely brilliant. I've done my degree through the Open University, and on the back of that, I hope to get full-time employment working in the community. So it's been just a positive experience all around. So it is. Same with healthcare. I feel down here that the nurses would have a lot more time for you and stuff like that there, and they're much more approachable, whereas probably in Magabry, there's more so visible and invisible barriers, you know. Relation to the mentor program, so I'm a mentor for the Ask Him mentors, which is run by the health engagement team. I'm a mentor for the Quaker service, who run a number of courses. They also provide pre-offenders. They run a course called Making Correct Moves Project and another one called the Healing Circle. I'm also a mentor, and I work with alongside Adept during a very important course called the Trauma Talks. So, and that we really look at why people, the factors that cause people to come to prison. So a lot of it is around adverse childhood experiences. and also around doing both them courses with the Make and Correct Moves and the trauma talks. We look a lot about accountability, so we're not really letting ourselves off the hook, So it's all right to say sorry, but you have to live it as well. So, and through doing them courses, guys, so I would spend a lot of time down in the PDU doing them.
That's the prisoner development
Yes,
unit.
and so guys really embrace it, and even sometimes guys might attend at the start as a box ticking exercise to think that they have to do it, but when they get into it, they realise, I can lead a different life here, and that was my experience of it as well. So I would do courses with the Ulster University in here, so we study law and criminology. We also have a theatre company called the Spanner in the Works Theatre Company who comes in to put on plays as well. So there's so many opportunities in here, and then not only that, as we can use them experiences and education and bring it back into the community so that we can be valued members of our community, so we can get employment and there's less crime being committed. So
it is about that journey out. It's about leaving Magilligan or any of the facilities and moving on with your life at that point.
So even with us being the Ask Him mentor, so we would play a real strong role with the prisoner development unit and with the prisoner safety and support team as well. So if we see someone from doing the Ask Him mentors, if we meet them in the morning time, we can literally speak to a member of staff immediately, be it the prisoner safety and support team, be it a senior officer, be it an officer on the land, be it a governor, anyone at all. And that's very important. And so it's even that trust that we have, that if we're concerned about someone, that will be dealt with straight away.
Well, that's one of the things that came out in this report, was about the strength of the staff and prisoner relationships here. How would you describe those in your words?
Well, at the minute now, I'm on what's called pre-release testing. So I get out to spend some time with my family and with other organisations that I'm hopefully going to be working with in the community. And one time in particular, I met my son, so he's autistic. So I was concerned because I had 2 prison officers with me, but he was so at ease with them, and that was how they dealt with it and how they put him at ease. So before going to other prisons, he wouldn't have had that good experience. So I was just so grateful that he came away and he was looking to see me again rather than being afraid of prison officers, so.
Very, very important.
We had the autism bus here.
Yeah.
So we had the autism bus here for a few days, and that was for patients and staff, so that people could see what it's like for those exact reasons. So staff can be, sympathetic
Greater
to
education
family.
around people that are neurodiverse and how best to engage with those individuals.
Can I just pick up on the point that Declan made about accountability and community, and he's probably going to be a lot more articulate around this piece than I will be. But a lot of people see sort of prisons as a place of punishment, or someone who's committed a crime needs to be put away and forgot about. And Declan said himself, it's about the work that we do here is not about being soft on that. It's about encouraging people to go on their own journeys. And Declan used the word himself about accountability. And one of the big things that we tried to do here is in Magilligan was build a sense of community, that this was a place that it was okay to be yourself, that this was a place where you were safe to go on your journey, to put you out, as Declan said, out the far side and become part of society again. Because a lot of people that come to us, now I'm not being an apologist for any offence that may have taken place. People made a conscious decision to commit an offence, but a lot of the people that do come to us are damaged themselves. Absolutely. And have had poor interaction with state agencies. Should that be social services? Should it be the police? Should it be the PPS, the courts? Even education, Stephen. I was going to leave you out of it, but I will. I'll leave. No. I'm not going to mention the health service. When you hit 60, you might need the health service. So I don't need someone saying, weren't you that guy on that podcast that said, so anyway, so people come with a lot of people come with their own issues, with their own trauma. So what the prison service does not need to do is to add to that. So we have to create an environment or a culture, whatever you want to call it, where people have that safe space to see where they're at in their lives to try to move forward. And in doing that, we hopefully prevent the next victim in society.
I think I can add to that in terms of the collaboration piece, that we are allowed to do what we do best, and it's understood. There's an accountability. Sometimes we have to bow to what's going on within the environment, but that happens anywhere. But in terms of why we do things from an education point of view, I can go to Gary and say, we need to do this. We think this will be a good idea. And he goes, give it a go. And if it doesn't work, we'll learn from it and we'll move on. If it does work, you like to get the credit.
That's why I'm here.
But ultimately, I do think where that environment isn't just for residents and staff on the ground, it actually, I think, as collaborative partners, we fall into that as well. And it does make our life easier to come up and go, I've had an idea, which terrifies Gary sometimes when that happens, but more often than not, we get to give it a go. Yeah. And there's that freedom to fail as well, which is really, really important.
I think the inspectors as well who were on site that week felt that very strongly across both the partnerships and the community and voluntary sector organisations that work here, but particularly with the prisoners and also with your own staff. So your leadership is credited in the report, and it's about enabling people to be able to play to their strengths and deliver for the prison, and that's very much recognised within this report.
Yeah, can I pick up on what Declan said too about trauma? And we've had our trauma talks, and we are focusing on trauma informed practice going forward. And that's, people ask me, why would you want to work in a prison? as a nurse. This is a really nice place to work, and I work with some of the most damaged. We look after some of the most damaged people in our society who come from very dysfunctional families who've had no chance in life but to go through the custodial. And, they deserve healthcare the same as everybody else. And that's why I do it. And this is why my team do it. And, what I always tell new nurses coming into the job is, this isn't for everybody, and it's not. But, deprivation of freedom is punishment. We're here to deliver the exact same care as somebody would get in the community. And some people don't like that and think, Some
find that a difficult message, especially when you have the length of the health waiting lists that people see on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly, but then they haven't had the trauma that, the men in our care have had. And that's why we do it.
There's a lot of positives, and I think it's 19 notable positive practice examples found in this report, which the inspection team felt other facilities had the ability to learn from and perhaps even take forward and adopt in their own in other prisons. But there are also some hard messages in this report around the challenges that remain at Magilligan, and I'd like to touch on how those are going to be addressed. There were 4 priority concerns and 7 key concerns, if I'm correct. And one that was central is around access to and misuse of drugs. It is an issue in prisons across the board. It's something that is an issue here at Magilligan. Particularly what I picked up on was around prescription medication perhaps not being taken by the person that it was intended for, and how that could impact on the stability of the environment here at Magilligan. And I just wanted to ask, from a prison's perspective, from a healthcare perspective, education, even prisoner viewpoint, what has been done to address that since the inspectors were on site in September 2025?
Come on.
Yep, sure.
So I have an issue with the term prescribed medication because our data would suggest otherwise. I know the majority of our drug fields is on buprenorphine, which is a controlled drug, which any of our patients that are on buprenorphine, it is, directly administered to them in a controlled environment. If patients want to conceal their medication, they will conceal their medication, and they're very, very good at it. And I don't know what else we can do to prevent that from happening. Our data would suggest we do compliance, so medication compliance checks, where we look at patients that are on high-risk medications or other medications and do spot checks. So the patient doesn't know that we're coming to do a spot check. And in 2023, 79% were compliant with their medication. In 2024, 84% were compliant with their medication. So although you're saying prescribed medication, it could be illicit prescribed medication that's coming in.
Yes,
but the term prescribed medication then looks at it as if it's what healthcare staff are giving out to patients within the prison.
And absolutely, it could be medication that is coming in to the prison from outside, but the issue and probably the impact could be the same in terms of destabilisation.
Yeah, I think the greater issue is why do patients feel the need to take medication, whether it's illicit or prescribed medication, and that all goes back to that trauma piece where they want to block it out. And so I think we need to focus on trauma-informed practice and probably.
I was just going to say, Elaine, it also links to the other concern that was identified in the report about the funding of the addiction services.
Absolutely.
And, the waiting list that there are for the addiction services and also for the amazing work that Adept do on site, are too long. But also it goes hand in hand in terms of the demand and the supply. So inspectors will have looked at, the drug test data. They will have looked at the drug misuse strategy. Will have looked at the survey results, which actually did show quite a significant differential in terms of the proportion of men here who said that they developed a drug problem whilst in custody. And the drug strategy itself, the inspectors felt wasn't sufficiently tailored to Magilligan in terms of an understanding of what's happening here and what are our responses around this. So it was an area that we felt in terms of, the prison was assessed to be safe. Yeah. But this is an area potentially where it
could impact on
just the stability of that. Yes, but it's really an area where it was felt there needed to be more a strategic grip. And I think this is where the move away from making umpteen recommendations to addressing and making a number of concerns. Yeah. So we're saying to the prison, these are our findings and we have concern around these. And then we're looking to Gary and his leadership team and others then to sit down and say, okay, what is the problem and how do we address this problem? So it's not inspector saying, Gary, you need to do these umpteen things. And because you do those umpteen things, that will fix that problem, because this, particularly drugs in prison, is an ongoing.
It's a dynamic issue.
Yeah. And it needs that dynamic response.
And I think we have a second addictions practitioner who was only in post a month before the inspection. So I think when you do come back to inspect, we will see a change in that. Yeah. We definitely will see a change in that, because when we look at one of the notable positive practices was about the learning disability nurse and the difference that she made in the year that she was in post. So I think, with the second addictions practitioner being post, I think we will see a huge difference a year down the line on how we can impact on the issues that we know they're there. Yeah. I'm not taking away from the fact that we do know that they're there.
Coming from the mentor point of view, so what I do the administration for the ASCIM as well. So just because I only done it there a few weeks ago, so I know in the month of January, we spoke to 189 prisoners around the safe care of medications. So it was just because what you will have coming into prison is maybe a guy first time in, not in that long, and then somebody who's been in there quite a while who has an addiction issue who'll maybe kind of talk him out of his medication, and then he thinks he can just go down to the nurse and get it again.
Pick a new prescription.
And so we also tell them that will not happen, So it's about kind of letting people know that as well. That they're responsible for their own medication when it's in their possession.
It's obviously such a multifaceted issue within custody, and you're also looking at you've introduced the body scanners.
Yes. So there's a range of things, and there's also the piece. So I'm going to start from a non-security perspective. So people being able to manage their medication is an important part of rehabilitation as well. And there is that trust piece around saying to somebody, it's okay for you to hold on to your own meds. We don't want to be continually bringing people over, because that doesn't happen in society. You don't go back out and somebody comes and gives you a tablet every day. No. So there is that piece. So that's the piece that where we start from. Like, that creates them problems, that there is the potential for diversion, that Declan and his colleagues have to go around and talk to people about that. The medication checks are run jointly between ourselves and the trust. We actually don't use prison discipline if medications aren't right. That's a healthcare matter. That's a matter for the individual to be able to learn to use their own medications responsibly. And I accept the point that Elaine makes that if individuals are using certain types of pharmaceutical products that are available, then people do try to move those in. So what have we done since the inspection? Well, the body scanner still stays in place that looks for internally secreted items. We have changed the way that we approach some of our search and scanning procedures. I would be foolish to tell them on the podcast exactly how it is that we're going about that.
But that is designed to try and stop the items coming in the first place. If we can
stop stuff coming in at source, Melanie, then that reduces the potential for harm inside and keeps the area safe. In fact, even the ethos of our body scans is about stopping the item getting in. It's not about recovery. It's about keeping Magilligan safe. So we have that. We sat in this very room a week ago, ourselves and healthcare, to sit down to say, look, this is, as Maureen said, this spans everything. So we need to be clever about how we start to put a plan together that tackles those addiction issues, that tackles those trauma issues, that tackles the desire, that is much more informed. And this is, and I'll put my hands up, where we maybe just fell down in the report, and reading through the report, you'll see it. Maybe our analysts, and our use of analysis is, there you go. Yes. If Maureen could come back every week to speak for me, that would be great. Our analysis of data and trends and stuff really wasn't where it should be. So it is something that we need to get better at, that then better informs the decisions that you make moving forward. And we've already started to reach out to partners, and Declan mentioned about the Ulster University, to say, is there something that we could work with together that would give us much more sort of timely and accurate information?
Mm-hmm. Do you feel the steps that you're taking and the moves that are being made is going to improve and lead to a more effective response in this area?
The big bit, and Maureen, I think what was Maureen said about the excellent services that ADEPT provide, and again, ADEPT have a group of really switched on mentors, and I keep talking about mentors, but these are guys with lived experience that have walked the walk, and it's very, their impact on other people is way beyond sometimes what I can do.
Or healthcare professional can do even.
Yeah, so it's really, we tackle it. So there's a certain amount that I can do by way of preventing incursion and stuff coming in, but really it's to remove the need, or for people to think differently about themselves or be different, and that's where we make the real difference. So the more people that we can start to think about themselves differently, to improve their self-esteem, to improve their self-worth, to engage in the programs that Stephen delivers, that Elaine delivers, that will help as well reduce the demand. And we do that not just with what we do here, but we also have very effective outreaches with families to try to build that sense of, okay, you're in here, but you're not completely apart from your family. You're still a part of your family, and try to use families pretty proactively in terms of their impact on the people that live here as well.
I think it's important though as well that you'd mentioned about your LD nurse, and we have special education leads coordinator as well. Those areas where people are getting support at the very beginning of their journey actually sometimes mitigates the need for going down the pharmaceutical route, and we're starting to see a little bit more consistency even in our classrooms and in behaviour, and that's so it is right across the prison. I don't think it's just on security. I don't think it's just on healthcare. It is absolutely everybody. Particularly, again, back to Declan, the guys in the ground.
Declan, you'll be sorry.
We didn't tell you we're bringing you to throw you under the bus, sure we didn't.
What I would like to add in that there is like a lot of guys who come into Magilligan, Magabry and Highbank, they come from poverty, with little chance of social mobility. They come into prison and they're hopefully going back out, that they don't go back into that same poverty. That another good project coming in here is the turnaround project. Yeah. So they're going to start working with them as well. And even guys from there's a guy who's doing that program at the minute, the trauma talks, and he's from the travelling community. And he says it's only since he came to Magilligan that he's felt somebody has not judged him and took him serious. And this is a guy who came with no literacy, who's now doing his level 2 in English and mathematics. And he has a different walk about him, because people are starting to see him now, not just somebody from the travelling community, but as a person, so.
And that employability and that pathway for the future is very central as well, and that's something that came up in the inspection report as well, about what work's been done to help aid a return to the community. Is there anything that you'd like to sort of bring to our attention around what's been done to improve that since?
There's been a lot of work with headquarters with regarding deployability strategy, but ultimately everything that we do from a learning and skills perspective should reflect labour market need to give these guys an opportunity to get work when they leave here. That link between leaving here and into community, particularly the business community, is an area that is improving, but it's something that has to be completely looked at constantly, because industry's dynamic, more dynamic than anything else, as we all know. The labour market moves, skills shortages move. We try to respond to that as much as we can. Sometimes very, very difficult to do that in a very quick manner, looking at particularly the environment and the infrastructure. But I believe we'll get to that in terms of the buildings and things like that. But there is movement. I do appreciate that there's a lot more work going on with employers. There is an employability committee now that has a lot of local industry heads within it. They had a launch recently down in Magabry, and that will be coming up here as well. So there is a lot of movement in that. And I do appreciate that it is something that is going to be a moving feast always. I think the difficulty about employability is if you lose sight of it, you lose sight of the end goal. Yeah. And that's something that we all need to manage a little bit better.
I think just to add to that as well, Stephen, that one of the notable positive practices was around just the sheer range of what's described in the report as enrichment activity. So there is so much going on, and so many organisations involved. So it's how all of that comes together as a cohesive piece to support well-being and employability as well. So that's also what the strategy was driving at too. Yeah.
We all have responsibility, not just from this side of the wall, but sometimes it can be difficult to carry that through.
In terms of looking forward, we have this very positive report on Magilligan. I suppose this is a question for the whole table, is how do you build on this report from here on, and also how do you stop potentially complacency creeping in? You've had a good report at this point. There could be an opportunity to sit back and just relax. How do you go about ensuring that doesn't happen? It's a progressive journey.
Well, I'm taking up a post in Barbados on the beach, so I think Elaine and Stephen should answer that.
Hot off the press.
Hot off the press. The work that it's. I don't want to say it's keeping the faith. That sounds somewhat strange, but it's about keeping that drive alive. So we talk about See Beyond here in Magilligan. So see beyond the walls, see beyond where you are now, see beyond what you think your possibilities are, see beyond the wire, see beyond your cell, see beyond that guy that's got a uniform on or that nurse, see the person, all that type of stuff. And equally it applies to everybody here. So see beyond was actually hatched by me, I think in 2021. I was only back about 21 days when Maureen kindly said she was coming to see me. And See Beyond became what we wanted to do then. To
sort of a vision for the
have a vision to move forward, and the C stands for safe, engage, empower, and that still very much stays the mantra moving forward. I don't see any need to change what is a very positive culture and a community here in Magilligan. And you're right, completely could say, and you could say, well, look, here, you know what, we got 4 4s, and as Maureen has said earlier on, you can sort of say, well, it was us in 2021 and somebody else in 2022 and 2023. We'll not see Maureen again for 4 years until she kindly did the IRP. So, yeah.
There's a whole team, Carrie.
There's a whole team. Yes, my apologies.
No, I am team.
Yeah. So it's about keeping it going. Because we kind of owe it to the people that live here to keep that going. We wouldn't be true to ourselves if you were saying, well, we've done that bit now, we'll just forget about it. I'm still out and about on the ground an awful lot. A lot of people still talk to me, when's this happening, when's that happening?
In fact, when Declan came in today, he was very quick to say he wanted a word with you.
Yes, Declan's like my work wife who continually reminds me about things that I may or may not have done or not done. So it's making sure that we move forward. Yesterday,
it's a pride thing as well.
It is.
It's because you're proud of what you do and you want to maintain those high standards. Yeah. So it's sustaining those high standards.
I think we all talk about the mission of what we do. Elaine had mentioned earlier about convincing people to come and work in a prison. It's not always easy, but you can decide to work in a prison, but the prison decides whether you stay or not in terms of culture. And if you stay, you want it. You want to make sure that these guys have the best opportunity to make a difference and get opportunity when they leave. We're probably the only industry we don't want repeat customers. We never want to see them again in the nicest possible way. Yeah.
I suppose coming from a resident point of view, and probably 3 or 4 things that could, as mental health, addictions, them things can be addressed for people getting out, relationships, that they're healthy relationships, employment, so guys are getting out and they feel socially included rather than going back and living in the subculture of, what they've done before, homelessness, so it's about kind of tying them in with all them organisations in the community, so it's creating that pathway,
Because if they, the other people around the table, they could all potentially move on to other opportunities or other challenges. Gary's already Barbados.
Yes. One of the range of options, Melanie, that I'm currently considering.
But for people like yourself, Declan, if there's a positive culture, there's something that is engaging with other prisoners, you don't want to lose that, and it's about maintaining that.
Some of our patients are set to feel, you do everything you can for them when they're in custody and they're just going out there and there's nothing out there for them. Yeah. So the alternative is come here and get warm bed and 3 meals and somebody look after you. That and that's society, unfortunately.
There is no doubt that homelessness is a huge issue that's impacting, and without accommodation, then that's such a difficult.
There's a societal requirement to change too. We've already talked about colleagues and different things. What are you working in there for? It's difficult to go back into community when a community sees you as a pariah because of a decision made a long time ago. And there's no cognizance of the journey that individual and that support that they've had and the efforts the individual has made to move.
And if that person continuously labelled as that, he's going to act it out.
100%.
You know what I mean? Because he sees that's all he's worth anyway.
Mm-hmm. And I think it goes beyond the partners in the prison service. There is a societal shift that has to happen, because these are our neighbours. They're coming out to be our neighbours again, and we want them to be good neighbours. Surely people want that.
I mean, I will say the biggest walls that my guys face are not the walls around this prison, to the walls in society when they go back out.
Perhaps that's an opportune point to bring to a close this episode of Criminal Justice Inspection Unpacked, focusing on Magilligan Prison. Thank you to Gary, to Stephen, to Declan, Maureen, and to Elaine for your insights, your conversation, and your time today. I hope you have enjoyed this and find it as interesting as I have. Don't forget, all previous episodes of our podcast are available to download and listen to on your preferred podcast platform. But for now, thank you for joining us, and I hope you'll be with us again soon when we take a dive into the issues for our criminal justice system in Northern Ireland.